Hi everyone. So the goal of this tutorial is to show you how to draw a structure like this using R and R2easyR. So yeah, I mean, basically the idea is you have some RNA structure and you'd like a nice looking figure, but it would take a long time to draw something like this in say Illustrator or PowerPoint. There's a much faster way. You can get a computer to do it. So to kind of start things off, we have our structure 5' to 3'. This is a made-up RNA with some made-up reactivity data, but you can see that the idea is that the intensity of the color behind the nucleotide is proportional to the reactivity at that residue. So, this C is less reactive than this A. So you're going to want to have two windows open when you start this. The first is your R window. I'm going to use RStudio here because I like it a lot. But of course, you could use your R terminal or whatever. And the second is you need to have your terminal up, and you have to have R2r installed because we're going to use R to generate the R2r inputs, and then we'll use R2r to actually draw the figure using those inputs. So, Mac users have this easy. They can just use their terminal. Windows users like me have to use a bash shell like Cygwin. So before we start, I want to talk a little bit about setting up the stuff. So here I have a comma separated value CSV sheet that you can open up in Excel. So this might be good if you have some RNA and maybe you've quantified a gel and you want to see what that quantification looks like on your RNA. So basically you want to format your data into 4 different columns. The first is in, the second is nucleotide, the third is dot bracket, the fourth is reactivity. And you want to make sure these columns are named correctly, or else it's going to mess with you because my R program won't be able to recognize the column. Second of all, you want the dot bracket to specify your secondary structure. Dot bracket using these carrots and sticks, which is what R2r reads. And then you want another column with your reactivity data. Notice I didn't put anything in these columns when there was no reactivity data. You could add a placeholder like a 0 or a very small reactivity value, but don't add something like NA. Don't do this because R is going to read that as something weird and not no value there, and you're asking for a lot of trouble. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and open my R console, and I'm going to open up a new script just to have some place to put my data. Sorry, just to have some place to put my code. So I'm going to save my R script as, and I'm going to save it in the directory with my data. That way I have an easy time getting there. So I'll call this demo.r. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the working directory. You can use code to do this, but I like to go session set working directory to source file location. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this from my console down here in case I want to use it later. The next thing you're going to want to do is install R2easyR. And you can actually do this with one line of code if you have a package called DevTools installed. This is the package that I use to kind of compile my R2easyR package. And then I'm going to go DevTools : install GitHub, and then jpsig is my username, to direct you to the right place. And the package is called R2easyR. And it's going to throw you some error message because, oh, wait, I spelled it wrong. Hold on, I have to look up how to spell easy. Yeah, it's EASEY. All right. Oh, that's not right either. Sorry about this. EASY. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So again, it'll throw you an error message because I'm not that great at coding, but it's going to work. So it wants you to update. It might want you to update all these packages. Don't do it. It'll take forever. Just enter an empty line of code. Almost done installing. And then it's done. And then you can load the package into your memory by going library R2easyR. Okay. The next step is loading in our data. I'm going to use a comment and say load in data. And I'm going to say my df, want it to be a data frame, and I'm going to use read CSV because I have it formatted as a CSV. I forgot what the file name was called, so I'm going to go ahead and look at it using list files. And down here, I see it. It's called simple RNA.csv. And then I can go ahead, data frame, and I can see that I've got my columns. They're named correctly. Looking down here in the console, got nucleotide, dot bracket, and reactivity. Next step is I need some palettes to map the reactivity data to. So I'm going to generate the built-in R2easyR palettes. And so I'll make an object called palettes. And R2easyR palettes is the function. And then there's no arguments for this. It just happens. So I go ahead and run this code. It'll take a sec. My computer's running a little slow late tonight. Okay, it's done. If we open up our file explorer, you see you've got a new file here called palettes. And this is just a list of all the different palettes that you can map your reactivity data to. The Veridis palettes are in here. I don't recommend them. I think they're great palettes for a lot of graphics, but they don't look great on secondary structures. There's .L palettes for coloring reactivity data on letters. So if you want your letter to correspond, the color of your letter on a secondary structure to correspond to the reactivity, I recommend these. But my favorite is to draw a little circle behind the nucleotide and have the intensity of the color in that circle be proportional to the reactivity data. And my favorite one is this one, palettes, yellow, orange, rd.c. And if I want to call one of those palettes is just a R list. I can go $, and then you can see here are all your palettes. And I want to use yellow, orange, red, .c. And if you look down here, these are the values of all the colors that it's going to map to in order of least intense to most intense. The next step is I want to map my reactivity data to the palettes that I just to the palette I just generated. And there's a built-in function to do that. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the help file because I don't remember everything it does. And that function is called R2easyR.color, as it colors nucleotides. And here's the help file. Got a description of it, the usage. Again, the question mark is pulling up the help file. So basically, I look at that, and I know my first argument is going to be the data frame. So R2easyR.color. First argument is data frame, so it's this one up here, df. The next argument is the palette. I'm just going to go ahead and copy, not cut it from that line, paste it in there. My third argument, you can skip this. You can leave this set to the default. It's not going to do anything unless you color the letters. But the last thing I want to set is the absolute reactivity threshold. And especially if you're quantifying data from a gel, you probably don't want that background reactivity to be behind every single nucleotide because it's going to look really cluttered on your final secondary structure. So a good value to set it to is something like 0.1. Anything less than that's insignificant and you don't need to look at it. And then the last thing, if you want to use the same scale, you can use manual scale here. Same scale for different RNA. You can use manual scale, but we're only drawing one RNA, so I'm not going to set that for now. And lastly, I forgot, I want to add the color information to data frame, EF. And if I go ahead, data frame, after running that line of code, I'll see that I have two new columns in my data frame down here in the console. I have a labels column, which basically says, is there reactivity data or not? And I have a colors column, which says what color do I want the eventual nucleotide to be. And lastly, on this step, we've got two new files in our directory. The first is a reaction plot. So this is how the colors are actually going to look on your RNA. So residue versus reactivity. And the second one is legend. So this is a legend. You can open up an Illustrator or something and copy and paste it next to your RNA. And so low reactivity 0 is not going to be very intense. High reactivity is going to be very red. The next step is to actually write the R2r files. So I'm going to use a function called, first write R2r files. Actually write R2r inputs, because these are the files that R2r is going to read to make our structure. So the function that does that is, I'm going to check the help file again, because again, I don't remember everything it does. So it's R2easyR.write. And if we look over here, got a description, tells you what it does. Then you've got usage and various arguments. So the first argument is going to be the output file name that I'm going to want So I'm going to just call it demo. I'm going to put quotations around it. Demo, not dimp. The next argument is going to be the data frame, so df. After that, you can add an RNA name. So you could call it, I don't know, I'll call it Jacob's RNA. And then finally, we need to set colors here to circles, because I want the reactivity data to be circles behind the nucleotide. You can also do letters. You can also say, you know what, I don't want to map the reactivity data. I just want my R2r input files. So I'm going to go ahead and run this line of code. And if I open up my console, my file explorer, I've got two new data. The first is a Stockholm file containing all the drawing information. And the second is the R2r meta file, which will tell R2r how to draw it. And so now I can go into Sigwin and I can run R2r. I can go R2r. I'm going to use disable usage window. Sorry, not window, message. And that's because I don't want it to print the is it usage message or warning message? I think it's warning. And that's because I don't want R2r to print the warning message that normally goes along with. It's disable usage warning. And normally, you know, you're using this on consensus secondary structures, and we're not doing that, so we don't need to see that warning. So I'm going to go demo R2r meta. So this is the file I want R2r to act on, and then I want it to be named, the output to be named demo.pdf. And there it just ran, and if I open up my file explorer, I have a new PDF called demo. And we're almost done. You can see the structure looks all right. However, this stem is clashing with this stem over here. And I'd like to prevent that. And you could fix this by using, you know, the R2r syntax. I have a quick little trick built into this package called R2easyR stem editor. And R2r stem editor will edit the default layout to flip every other helix across the line of the backbone so that helixes that are close together aren't going to clash with each other. So we're going to edit the default stem layout. And the function we're going to use is R2easyR.stem editor. So again, I pulled up the help file. Notice there's not a lot of arguments. It's just the Stockholm file that you want to perform a edit on. So I'm going to go R2easyR stem editor. And then I think the Stockholm file was named demo.sto. So it ran through here and it added these place explicit commands down here at the bottom on line 40 and 41 that will help us get a better layout. So now if I got to close this PDF first, but now if we run the same code, R2r disable usage warning, the meta file, and then the PDF, we get a much better layout, you know, because this helix has been flipped across the line of the backbone, and it's not going to clash with this helix. So that's it for kind of the little tutorial.